You know what I've noticed about you?
And
You're Johnny opposite.
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 Johnny O. Johnny Ops.
If people are disappointed, you find a happy...
Johnny...
You're optimistic, and then when people are optimistic, you can point out you're good at reading the room. You balance it.
Yourself.
You're the Jedi. You balance the good and the bad.
Is that what the Jedi does?
That's what the gray Jedi does.
I thought the Jedi was good.
The good, but the gray Jedi balances the bad and the good.
Obi-Wan.
No, he's a Jedi. Is this being recorded? We can tell the folks.
Man, all I know about Star Wars, I can recite the first 3.
Mm-hmm.
The next 3, I just felt like I was
prequel.
a little too old to be a complete dork. No, I watched them, but it felt like it ventured over into too much sci-fi. I'm more of I liked Hoth and the what's the Tatooine.
Tatooine.
And the
Great music at that bar.
All that stuff.
I've been to that bar. It's good. Good place.
Yeah, like Jabba the Hutt, all that.
Yeah, that's believable.
That was my stuff.
Yeah, I agree.
I like monsters. The what was that thing that would
Jar Jar Binks? You can't like
I
him.
don't like him.
No.
In the snow.
Oh, yeah.
That big monster, abominable snowman, whatever.
So
there was a monster last night ravaging the SEC.
Yes, and just real quick, this is the Loochador Podcast, brought to you by Academy. Yeah, were you rolling? Okay. It's the Academy. This is Academy Sports and Outdoors Loochador Podcast. After A&M loses 43-41 to Auburn on the road here in the Rollo Insurance Studio. We love Academy. I buy a lot of stuff at Academy. I haven't gone this week, but I went several times last week, and I know you've been recently.
Let's go this week, Monday or Tuesday. I told you I'm on the verge of buying a baseball mitt. I'm a little nervous about getting a glove because that means more playing catch.
Yeah.
And that means more maybe overestimating what my hand-eye coordination is at this, advanced age. So I'm just begging for to take a baseball right off the forehead or something. So that part of it makes me go, if I don't buy a baseball glove, then I'm not going to play catch. Then I'm not going to misjudge my hand-eye coordination after taking however many years off.
Yep.
So hence I avoid it. But you know what? Feeling risky. I'm feeling risky. I think we're going to buy a baseball glove, or we're going to find a nice jacket to wear in this cooler weather. Particularly, hey, by the way, little game that still got quite a bit of importance last time I checked. Low of 42, high of 65, so I might go buy a jacket at Academy to rock at Kyle Field Saturday.
Well, great, Jedi. Let's give A&M a compliment sandwich here.
Better be a sandwich.
Well, it's not even a compliment. It's just the reality is they can still go to the SEC championship game if they win at home against Texas, something we think they can do. And then we also have to unpack what has happened. What a demoralizing defeat yesterday.
I mean, that's just the nicest, demoralizing, not inexplicable that they went in there and lost. We knew this was in play.
Yep.
Inexplicable the way they lost. I never would have pictured that. We knew this was a risky game. And I know people will say, they're 1-5 in the SEC. Anyone that knew football knew that the gap between these two teams is not 5-1 versus 1-5. You watch the tape, you look at the players, you look at the skill people they have, you watch their games, you understand that they just constantly shot themselves in the foot. Now, it was up to A&M to make that team do that and to make that team implode. And maybe they'd have accomplished that had they not spotted them 21 to start the game. That's my biggest issue of all of it. And I'm not saying that was the only thing. We know we're going to sit here and talk about some of the reasons they lost. And a lot of them happened way after it was 21-0. Some of it happened when A&M had the lead. A lot of it happened in overtime. But it's bothersome, the thing that I'm most bothered by, and I am, look, there is a positive to this thing that I don't want to go very far into this show without talking about. And that is what's still in play. So A&M was bestowed upon them this tremendous gift, and they had so many chances against Auburn, and they just couldn't capitalize. They couldn't put it away. They didn't take advantage of this golden opportunity. But yet what happened in Norman and what happened in Gainesville have all led to this game. We would never thought it, and Texas A&M is still playing Texas, where the winner goes to Atlanta and the loser goes home. Mm-hmm. So you have a new lease on life if you're the Aggies and you want it. If you want to show that this game and South Carolina are not indicative of the kind of team you can be. These games are a part of who they are. Yeah. Like, this is what they are now. You got to start questioning and this is a lot of teams, and a lot of what we say about A&M today, you can say about most teams in this conference this year. I know Aggies today, we don't want to hear that, but that's the truth. It happened to Bama. It happened to Bama once. It happened to Bama twice. They've lost 3. Tennessee was, toss-up game. It happened to Ole Miss, not once, not twice, but 3 times. They lost to an LSU team that we're seeing is not that good. They lost to Kentucky at home, which is Kentucky's only win of note this season. And then they went and lost to Florida. That was supposed to be a national title contender. Kalen DeBoer in year 1 has 3 losses. Tennessee lost at Arkansas at night. A&M, we know what the Aggies have done. We're about to talk about all this. Georgia, their losses have come to Alabama and Ole Miss, but they also stunk it up against Kentucky and almost lost. They also stunk it up against Florida and would have lost probably had Lagway not gotten hurt. It's happened to everyone in the league except Texas. Mm-hmm. And on one hand, I want to actually credit Texas for that. And on the other hand, I will say the common denominator, with all those other teams, is they have been bitten on the road, and particularly in most instances on the road at night. And Texas has not played a road game at night this year. Their only 2 true road games were at Vandy and at 11 a.m. against Arkansas, which they struggled in that one. That was a 4-quarter game. Credit them, though, for not, and this is, as we talk about the team we're about to play, the Longhorns, they won't listen to what I'm saying here. Your body of work and the conference and how we're viewing teams as a whole, actually, this is a real thing. I know this is hard to comprehend. It changes every week. So as I sit here today, I will give credit to Texas for, yes, I do still think you've had the easiest path to date. But Kentucky beat Ole Miss. Florida beat Ole Miss. Florida beat LSU. Vandy beat Alabama. Arkansas beat Tennessee. So you're at least doing what these other teams have not been able to do, which is not lose to those type teams.
Right.
What you haven't done, though, is be tested by the top of the league, and you certainly haven't been tested in what I consider a real SEC road environment. And unfortunately, the Aggies went into a real SEC road environment, and they failed, and they fell flat on their face early for the second time. And now they're at 11 of 13 road games they've lost. And had they beaten Auburn, I don't care if it's by 1 point or by 50, they would have been 3-1 in true road games in the SEC this year, which would have been really impressive. 3-1 away from home, which would have been extremely impressive.
Right.
But they're 2-2. And they lost their last 2 by going into these environments, Nuño, and going down 14-0 right off the rip at South Carolina and going down 21-0 to I think a significantly inferior Auburn team. Were in what, 17 minutes of play, Auburn was like basically over there, like their senior season scoring average. They're no showing out of the gate on the road, and it's a concern. Luckily, you're not on the road this weekend, but still.
Well, if I can add, and you may argue this, It even goes before that because you did fall behind 10-0 to LSU at home. And that looked like it could have gotten worse as well. Mm-hmm. I'm not going to call Mississippi – teams score on their opening drives, but Mississippi State scored on their opening drive. Yeah. So that is 4 SEC games in a row.
Arkansas scored on their opening drive.
Arkansas as well. So, but
I'm not worried about 10-0 at home. I'm worried about it, but I'm just – when you get – like you said, somebody's going to drive down and score on an opening drive. And then how did A&M respond? Mm-hmm. Quickly. I don't mean, but against those two teams, it felt like they really got the doors blown off right off the bat. And I believe this, and I know they came back and tied it against South Carolina by halftime, and I know they came back and they took the lead against Auburn. And damn, if that team did not show so much freaking fight last night, and credit Auburn too, because they did too.
Yeah.
Because they had their backs against the wall kind of out of nowhere. You're like 21-0. Now we're about to lose this thing. Both teams played their asses off. That was, if you didn't care who was playing, you could tell by social media and everything, everyone was dialed in and engaged in that game around the country. It was one of those Saturday night games that people couldn't turn off. Credit A&M. You came back from 21-0 down on the road in the SEC at night in a very hostile environment and took the lead with 4 minutes left in the game. It's a pretty remarkable accomplishment, but you couldn't finish the job. You could not, and part of it is because you fell behind 21-0, but other part is seemingly every chance you had to slam that door shut and secure a very important win. And there were guys during the game that stepped up and made big plays, big-time plays, everyone's talking about the last play, which, by the way, Amari Daniels dropped a touchdown, or 2-point conversion that would have extended the game. Let's remember what a big part he played in keeping the Aggies in that thing, bringing them back, and also over the last few weeks what he's done, thrust into action. And, look, he's got to make that catch. You don't win games, but their guy goes up and makes a spectacular catch in the clutch. Klein draws up a great play. Marcel delivers it. Amari drops the ball. I get it. But they're not in that spot without the dude. And they're not beating Texas without him either. And they're not, he's been an unsung, underappreciated guy for this team. And here's the one thing I'll say about that. I'd feel a lot differently if that catch was going to end the game and he dropped it and A&M went on to lose it. Should he have caught it? Yeah. Was that the end of the game? Absolutely. It was a very, it was a catastrophic miss. But let's remember that didn't guarantee A&M was going to win the game. So to say he lost the game it's factually
he didn't prolong
incorrect.
The game.
Because A&M would have had to get the ball, run their two. Auburn could have very easily still won that game. Yeah. With that stupid cockamamie, is that still a word?
Cockamamie.
They stopped that in the 50s.
Let me look.
Maybe Leave It to Beaver it was on. Or All in the Family. Maybe like an Archie Bunker would use that word. But cockamamie, what's the word for cockamamie?
Used to describe a person who was born in the Cheapside area of London with an earshot of bells.
That's not what it is. No. How do you spell it?
I spelled it wrong.
Yeah. I think I'm using it right. That cockamamie rule, the overtime rule is so stupid. And
something ridiculous, ludicrous, silly, impractical.
It's very impractical. But that rule, to have that, like Scott Van Pelt said, it's like, first of all, someone said, up next was going to be rock, paper, scissors between Freeze and Elko. It is the dumbest way to settle a 60-minute football game. And it's because of your soccer crap why they're doing this.
I get the blame.
Because some genius along the way was like, oh, I do like penalty kicks. Oh, that'll be a great idea. And no one in the committee set up and raised their hand and said, that sounds like the stupidest shit I've ever heard. No one in football can sit there and say, I'm sorry, that sounds dumb. Sorry to hurt your feelings, sir, but that sounds really stupid, and you should leave the room and recuse yourself from this committee because your opinion officially sucks. You can't, and on top of that, no one should ever come near the sport of football again if it's determined that they're the ones that decided these teams are going to walk back and forth at the end of the overtimes. Like, that's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. But to decide football games, and it's ironic that this happened after A&M LSU. I don't give a damn. Let them keep playing regular overtime.
Just watch.
Nobody cares. If you want to stop watching, tune out, and I got news for you. People don't stop watching. No one stopped watching a 7 overtime football game between A&M and LSU. Everybody was like, this is freaking theater.
Yeah.
Much less, instead, they're doing 2-point conversions. Like, it is, I think it's the worst way to decide a football game. And I've always thought that. You can go back and find me talking about it. The game after A&M LSU, the first game they did it, I thought it was stupid. I've been consistent with that. I just wouldn't have this tone of voice had A&M won it. I wouldn't be as passionate about it. But I always have thought it's a dumb rule. But the Aggies had a chance to win that way. They had a chance to extend the game, and a pass was dropped. Auburn had a chance to not make a spectacular catch. They made it. I'm working backwards here. You got we'll call it, I thought was in your favor, was that offensive PI that pushed them into a hard field goal range, made a field goal, so you got the ball to win it. You gained 7-8 yards on first down, and you look like you might be about to just go in and win this thing. You get called for holding. Drive killed. Thank God for Randy Bond. That was not an easy field goal to keep that game going. That holding penalty could have lost it. But all you had to do was score and win. You had a situation where all you needed was one stop on one drive, not a field goal. They had to get in the end zone. Your defense, which had played lights out for most of the second half, could not stop them. And you had a fourth down play where you let Peyton Thorne scramble, not only get the first down, but get a lot of yards.
25 yards.
That was 25, yep. That was a massive, as big a play as any.
That's the biggest play of the game, I think.
Yeah, I think so. Well, A, because it's over if you tackle him. B, or pressure him. B, he flipped the field. Think about it. They scored with, 5 seconds left. Mm-hmm. If he gets the first down and gains 6 yards, they probably run out of time. I mean, they're having to take shots in the end zone. So you just had to keep them from getting in the end zone, and you let them go 15 plays, 74 yards, and you just said it. 25 of those were on one play. So it was 14 plays for the other 50 yards. You made them, they had to nickel and dime you all the way down, but they did it. You couldn't stop them at the end of the game. And then a couple drives before that, you get a interception at the 15-yard line, and you have to kick a field goal. Big time momentum boost for Auburn. Missed opportunity for the Aggies. You have a chance to run out the clock, David, and end the game. And what happens on first down? You drop a snap. You drop a snap and put yourself behind the chains at 2nd and 17. Basically kills a drive that really all you needed was a first down, maybe 2, to end it. And you take a 7-yard loss on first down for no reason. And then you throw a nice pass, and Theo drops there, and you end up having to punt. Like, we can keep going, but we can also go all the way back to the first half where you throw a red zone pick, where you miss a field goal, and, you had so many opportunities. My biggest concerns, David, are the way they started these last 2 football games on the road, going down by a combined 35-0. I think through 5 drives. I think it was the first 2 drives from South Carolina and the first 3 from Auburn. 35-0. And the second biggest concern coming out of both those games is, I mentioned how they played a lot better in the second half, but this defense, something's broke right now.
They're not tackling.
These are not, I know Cam Coleman's great, and I know Lambert Smith from Penn State has been a real player for them. And Jarquez Hunter, I've said since last year, he's one of the best running backs in the SEC. I get that. They took an Alabama team that was a play away from playing for the national title last year down in the last play there. It's all tough, and there's reasons why. But these are still not – Auburn and South Carolina are not explosive offenses. You know, they're tough to defend offenses because of the personnel, but they have really carved up and in a lot of ways made this defense look bad the last couple weeks. And you know, in regulation, you've given up 44 and 31 the last two Saturdays of SEC play, and that is. And it's coming off of holding LSU to 6 points in the second half with all their talent. And you just felt really good about this defense. They forced 3 turnovers. That vaunted LSU O-line. They got after Nussmeier. He's an NFL quarterback. 3 picks. And it was like, okay, I feel pretty good now about where this is going. But no.
I still saw...
It's the opposite now.
Peyton Thorne...
Sorry, I got something in my eyes.
I know he's got receivers, but I saw Peyton Thorne throw for 300 yards. What did he throw for last year? 44? Something like that. No. I saw several opportunities to get a sack on him. Mm-hmm. I didn't see the pressure that I thought I was going to see, though. I'm going to be very honest with you. Other than when they would dial up a blitz, I didn't feel the impact.
Yeah, no, I thought they did good in there. You know, there was you're talking about from A&M.
From A&M.
Yeah, no, the D-line has been way too quiet the last 2 weeks, and they've been getting run on. And what bothers me or concerns me, like, look, this season, either they're on the verge of something really special, and we'll talk about that in a minute, or the regular season's over in 6 days. It's up to them. My concern is for Texas, and if they win that, can they beat Georgia? And they're not going to do either. They're not going to come close to doing either without this D-line playing pretty dominant football.
Yep.
And they've been far from that in the last 2 SEC games. And I said it before this one. I did think they were going to go up there and that was going to be the difference. That they would control the line of scrimmage. They would limit Hunter. What concerns me right now about this defense is like how on their heels they've been these last 2 games. And I know a lot of it against South Carolina, and we said it, and I still stand by it, is just missing tackles on Sellers.
Yep.
But you're lying to yourself if you don't look at them the last 2 weeks and say they've been on their heels. They have not been the aggressors. They have not been, you know, they've just been on their heels, and they've been attacked by opposing offenses. They've been attacked, whereas the A&M offense at the beginning of these games is kind of in this feeling out process and almost feels like, you know, like trying to stay ahead of the change, trying not to. Whereas South Carolina and Auburn saw something in A&M that said, we're going to attack them. And then they're both, you know, we're going to do it with tempo. And that was happening last night. And there were just way too many very, very open receivers, particularly early, way more so early than late. I mean, they definitely adjusted and played a lot better football. But even in the second half, you know, Auburn went down and missed a field goal and scored a touchdown. Instead of 14 points, they had 7. But they were getting some gash runs there with Hunter, where the thing was just opening up. And then they'd go up tempo, and guys would be 8, 9, 10 yards off a wide receiver, catch an easy throw. And like, it was not, they did not, they've looked out of sorts the last 2 games.
Billy, you mentioned.
And by the way, with Texas coming up, it's kind of a big deal. Like, you're not beating them if you're not confident in what you're doing on the back end, and in practice, you're not going to win that game without a pretty stellar defensive performance where you get after Ewers and you get sacks, you take him to the ground, and you create probably a couple of turnovers. And they've been so far. They did get the big pick. With Mays. Again, they only turned that into 3. But you're not winning against Texas without wreaking quite a bit of havoc. And the last couple of games, the havoc has been, wreaked on them.
the reality, and it feels weird talking about the reality, okay? Because the reality is if you go beat Texas, and I don't think there's anybody who doesn't think that they can't beat Texas at home, right?
There's people.
Well,
I don't know what you've been looking at.
Sorry,
But yeah,
let me rephrase that.
Realistically, like, they can.
They can, and not just because a bad SEC team beats good teams at home. I'm not just saying that. I'm saying, like, A&M at their best is dangerous for Texas.
Yeah.
Okay?
And on that by the same token, Texas should be the favored team coming in here.
Yeah.
All this talk about their schedule and stuff, what people have never heard, and they get prickly down there in Austin, they've never heard people say that team's no good this year. Lord knows, I know. I'm going to get it this week. I'm bracing myself. We lost to Auburn. I'm going to get demolished because I have said many times that they're not good. I've said they're not going to do well in the SEC at the beginning, and they're not going to do, I will be held accountable for my words and actions. But what I have not said this year is I have not said they're not good. What, we've talked about, we have questioned how good they are.
Because of who they've played.
We have questioned, should they be number one? I've questioned, should they be number three? And even when I say that, I say they might be the third best. Should they be there right now? Things change, and now we're watching the SEC eat its own every week to the point that even if I can still say this team has not been tested in the way others have, and I'm not saying it's not because you're just better than them. It's because you have not been put to the same test. You've not been thrown into the Coliseum. I went and saw Gladiator Friday night.
How was it?
Pretty good.
Yeah.
It was obviously not as good as the first one.
But good.
Not even close, but it was still good. You will not walk away like disappointed you went and saw it. It was very good. But I'm watching that game and I'm like, yeah, this is like going on that movie, it's like going on the road in the SEC at night into these swamp and Death Valley and Jordan Hare and Neyland Stadium and all these places, like Athens. It's just different. And it really is. And I had people that watched that game saying it last night, that watched on TV. Some Longhorn friends of mine were like, okay.
We get it.
I think it was Atwell who she said, okay, we're not in Lubbock anymore. It's true. It's like, it's different. And Texas will get it next year. I didn't realize they played at Ohio State next year. I thought it was the home and home with Michigan. They're at Ohio State. They're at Georgia. They actually have to go to the swamp now with Lagway and this rejuvenated team. Oklahoma will probably be noticeably better because they were so bad this year up until last night. My God, we need to talk about that. But they haven't been tested that way, but I do think they deserve now to be where they are because the league's just chewed itself up. Mm-hmm. And now Texas has been sitting out of this to a degree. They have been sitting this out. Now, there are opportunities to lose when you play Kentucky, when you play Arkansas, when you play Vandy. We've seen that. They've proven it. They couldn't prove it against Texas. But they've kind of sat on the outside and watched everyone eat each other alive, especially last night. And they avoided the Kentucky upset. But again, at home against, they had to bench Vandergriff is so bad. But now they're venturing into the arena. And like I said a week ago, 2 weeks ago, guys, I'm just saying they shouldn't be ranked there now because if they lose to A&M, they should be out of the playoff. Well, guess what? Changed my tune on that too, but I haven't. It's not because of what I said then was wrong.
It's about what else has happened.
It's about what's happened since. And now, 100%, and I don't think, we all know if they lose, they'll be in the playoffs still. And they should be. Because the other contenders keep falling off.
Yep.
And at some point, there does need to be a line of like, hey, you just lost too much. That line for A&M has already been crossed, which is why they have to win their next two. I had someone tell me today, no, if they lose the SEC title game, they'll protect them and put them 100% they won't. They have to win both, in my opinion, now. There's zero doubt there. But in the case of Texas, what I've always said is they'll get their chance. You shouldn't be there now because you don't drop from 3 to 13 by losing one game. And I think that they needed to be out. They should have been sitting, not as high based on what they'd accomplished or not accomplished. But now they get A&M at night here, 10 out of 10 atmosphere, just like where A&M was last night. So that'll be a test. And then they'll play Georgia a second time. Their strength of schedule goes from to boom on the road at Kyle Field, boom in neutral
Atlanta.
side against Georgia, playing Georgia twice in one regular season. So now it's the whole thing. It changes week to week, but
if they beat A&M,
so they deserve to be favored. They have looked like a better football team than A&M over the course, just like I said, over the course of 11 games. You watch them play and you go, anybody that's watching these games will go, Texas is better. There might have been a week here or there where people go, oh, look at this. Maybe it's good. But where we are today, 11 games, Texas should come in here favored. A&M will have to pull an upset. I said the same thing about this. 5-1, 1-5, 4-6 overall. A&M was a better football team over the course of the season. They still are. They weren't the better team last night. Now, you could say, well, after getting spotted 21-0, you outscored them, what, 31 to 10 the rest of the way, in regulation, but you spotted them 31-0. 21-0. It doesn't matter. But the same thing you're saying about Texas, I would have said about that game. I would have said about OU and Alabama. And by the way, these gaps seem a lot bigger than A&M Texas. I would have obviously said the same thing about Ole Miss in Florida, Ole Miss Kentucky, Alabama Vandy. The list goes on and on. Tennessee, Arkansas. If A&M beats Texas at Kyle Field, tell me anything I'm saying that's wrong today. If A&M beats Texas at Kyle Field, would that even rank in the top 10 biggest surprising results in the SEC this season? Might not.
I don't think so.
I mean, just off the top of my head, I can say
Vandy, Bama.
The three of them yesterday.
Yeah.
Vandy, Bama, obviously. Tennessee, Arkansas. Ole Miss, Kentucky. I'm already at 6. So at the earliest, this thing is at 7. I bet it wouldn't rank in your top 10 this season. LSU, Ole Miss wasn't a shocker at the time.
South Carolina, A&M.
The way it went down? Yeah. I mean, so it's hovering. Is it in your top 10 biggest surprises in the Southeastern Conference this year? And by the way, we still have Vandy, Tennessee to go. So that ain't over yet. So, how about Florida, LSU? So there have been way more shocking things happening in this conference than A&M coming off losing an overtime game to Auburn at Jordan-Hare and coming back and beating Texas at Kyle Field. Texas, I've said all year, they're not invincible. They are right up there with the cream of the crop in the league. I guess if A&M can't knock them off, we're going to find out between them and Georgia in a couple weeks. But damn, if this team can, I think they should be really pissed off at themselves. And I think Elko and his staff are probably having a really rough conversation today.
Yeah.
Like, I wouldn't want to be in that room.
But what?
They should be pissed. And losing football in the SEC happens, but the way they started that game and to still take it to have 10 different plays where they could have ended the game, they've got to be frustrated, but also if we just would have just come out to play. And it wasn't like they were expecting to roll over. They got overwhelmed in the moment. And that's got to drive you crazy. But I hope this team is really pissed off and angry today. I hope they're angry and I hope they're embarrassed. There's not embarrassment in losing anywhere in this league anymore. Vandy, Bama proved that.
Yeah.
What happened in Norman last night, if anyone should be embarrassed right now, it's Bama. You were down 21-0, came back, took a lead, and lost in several overtimes. There's not an embarrassment thing. There should be an anger. and there should be like bitterly disappointing where you're just looking at yourself going, I blame me. And coaches are saying, I blame me. And players should be saying, I blame me across the board. So I think Texas is going to get their very best. And I think like Auburn, like South Carolina, like OU, like Bama, when this is a 3-loss Bama team that was beating Georgia 28-0, like Ole Miss, like Florida, the only team that hadn't done it, like A&M against LSU and Missouri, the only team that hadn't done it is Texas. Their big showdown game at home, they lost. But like all of those teams, Texas A&M, if you're not elite, and I don't know that anybody is this year, you're going to be pretty significantly different football team at home and the road. And this team is still trying to learn how to win and what it takes to win, and they didn't quite have what it took last night, mainly because of how they started, but also they just couldn't get that final dagger play, and Auburn did. But the gap between A&M on the road and that football team and this team at home, I think it's a pretty damn, it looks like a pretty large chasm to me. So this should be a different looking football team that we see Saturday night versus what we've seen these last couple of weeks.
Well, what a gift, because you lost 2 times in a row, right? You should be done, but you're not done. You have an opportunity to do something special. But there's 2 ways this can go. It can go a magical way.
Or even semi-magical.
Beat Texas is semi-magical because you get to Atlanta.
Okay, I know what you're going to go to, and we need to hit that because it's real. If you win and beat Texas and Georgia, then we know what we're calling this season.
Magical.
Incredible. And it's not over at that point. And you would have beaten a top 10 Missouri team, a top 10 LSU team, a top 10 Texas team, a top 10 Georgia team. I'm pretty confident that's never happened in the history of A&M football. That is so far from being a thing right now, but it's on the table.
It's right now.
Teams worse than A&M have tested Georgia to the limit this year, and Texas has not walked into this yet. So it is within the realm of actual possibility. It is not beating, Pete Carroll USC. It's not beating. It's not beating Vince Young and Georgia of 3 years ago.
Sure.
Okay, it's not doing that. So there's that.
There's that.
Then there's the beat Texas, lose to Georgia, and I still think if that happens,
very nice year.
No, incredible.
Incredible year. Sorry.
First season.
Yeah.
Like if you go to the SEC title game in year 1, and you would have beaten 3 top 10 teams at home. More importantly, you would have beaten LSU and you would have beaten Texas. And you would be 3-1 in top 10 games at home. You would be 3-2 in 5 games against top 10 teams. And that is year 1 under a head football coach. That would be actually remarkable. And you would have knocked Texas out of, the conference title game in their first year. You would have beaten them at Kyle Field, and the first time that game's been renewed since 2011. So 10 out of 10, as good a first season as you could have ever imagined. Now,
the other thing it can go, or the other way it can go, is you lose 3 straight SEC games to close out a year that started off with so much promise. Well, maybe not started off with Notre Dame, but from that point, that would be a rough way to go to your bowl game, wherever it is, and the offseason.
No question. And look, Texas, everything I said about them is fair and accurate. And another thing that's fair and accurate is they can jump all over your ass. They've shown that too. You let them get in a rhythm. You let number 3 feel comfortable back there, and you don't get that pressure. You miss tackles in space. You go 3 and out because you're getting beat at the line of scrimmage, or because they're making your quarterback fit it in too tight of windows, or guys drops passes. Things that they've shown in these last 2 games to varying degrees. My God, you let receivers run free in your secondary? Like, this Texas team could. So if you lost like that, even if you just lost, but if you lose like that, and you go down big in your last 3 SEC games after going 5-0 to start, 100%, it leaves a bad taste in your mouth. It doesn't. At the end of the day, if A&M went 8-4 in year one, look, that's better. That's the same as Jimbo went in his year one, who you hired as a national championship winning head coach with all the money and all the acclaim in the world. It'd be the same record. Better than what Sark did in Austin that year. Better than what Heupel did. Better than what Venables did. Better than what Hugh Freeze did. I could go, on and on the list of quality coaches, even right now around the country that didn't do as good, but much more specifically in the SEC, right? But it would be, like you said, 3 losses in a row after starting 5-0 in league play. It would include a loss to your arch rival at home as they celebrate going to the SEC title game. Ugh. You see that? Ugh. Just, ugh. So it definitely changes, and it should. It's not like, it should absolutely change the way you perceive the season. It doesn't mean that it was like a bad for you. You did the Jimbo first year record, which again, we were excited about. We were, and we should have been. You would also have 2 top 10 wins at Kyle Field to speak for it. But there would be that lingering thing of, man, you couldn't go on the road and beat an unranked South Carolina at the time. We're going to claim these top 10 wins. We have to say unranked South Carolina. And you couldn't go on the road and beat an Auburn team that if they don't beat Bama will not go to a bowl game. And that would be what really kept you from having an amazing season and also from playing in Atlanta.
Mm-hmm.
There's a world where one of those two would get. Is it true that they're saying that if A&M would have won last night, they'd be locked in? It doesn't make sense.
No, we ran the numbers yesterday.
Yeah, because it would be Georgia and Texas.
Yes.
Yeah. So
if A&M lost to Texas.
Yeah, beat Auburn, lost to Texas.
Yeah.
Because Texas would have to. Or would it? No. Here's the problem too. Tennessee would still be in that mix as well, most likely. So yeah, I didn't think so, but win them both, and you're already in right now. Okay, and that was what stood between you and already being in. Win one of them, and you're a lot more in the playoff race. So say now they beat Texas, lose to Georgia. This game last night probably is what keeps you out of the playoff. That's
the reality.
Losing to a sub-500 Auburn team will keep you out of the playoff. Probably, almost certainly. I'm going to say certainly. If I get proven wrong, then it's been a hell of a ride to get proven wrong. It will almost certainly leave you out of the playoff. So that's where this one comes in the biggest.
So what now?
Else?
Alabama, that was pretty shocking. I didn't watch the game because obviously I was watching the A&M game, but that was shocking.
No, that was Alabama has been the recipient of the 2 most shocking scores in the SEC this season, and they've been on the wrong end of them. Maybe they were on the right end when they were up 28-0 over Georgia. And this is why, I believe I said this last week, of all the contenders, I was like, I'd like to see A&M play
Bama.
Alabama or maybe Tennessee. But I was like, Bama. Everybody said, well, Jalen Milroe. I'm like, man, I've seen teams cause him problems. You can neutralize him. And Brent Venables, OU, credit them. I think we all laughed about that game being on TV. Everyone from College Station to Austin to Tuscaloosa and around the league were like, why are they doing this to them?
Mm-hmm.
Why are they putting this on TV? You know what? They got their big night game, and they got the Crimson Tide coming in there. And that wasn't the same team. That wasn't the same Jackson Arnold. But to look up and see that score at 24-3, what in the hell are you doing, Kalen DeBoer? With that talent and with the culture Nick Saban had there, that you can beat LSU the way you did and beat Georgia and then lose to Vandy and then go lose to a horrifically bad OU team. Man, that's bad coaching. And again, I can show you A&M, Auburn, and South Carolina, and if y'all want to play the draft pick game over the next 2 years, we can do it. There is not going to be a big gap. And in some instances, a couple of those teams, maybe both of them, might have more guys drafted. It's about talent-wise, it is very much the same between A&M, South Carolina, and Auburn. But when you go like Bama and what DeBoer walked into, and I know it got depleted some by the portal, but they are playing at a talent advantage. He walked into the winningest of winning cultures. Yep. This is not like Mike Elko walking into A&M where they're 500 over 2 years. It's not like Steve Sarkisian walking into Texas where they had the stench of Tom Herman and Charlie Strong still up in the walls like mildew. They finding P charts all over the place after that. This was not like, Brent Venables having to pick up the pieces after Lincoln Riley left and took all of the players with him, including the Heisman Trophy winner. It's not like Josh Heupel walking in to replace, who is that before? Jeremy Pruitt. It's Bama. So, yeah, really, I think I went from thinking this dude doesn't lose, and he beat Georgia, and now I got to be the biggest disappointment in college football this year. And what else? Ole Miss?
Ole Miss, yeah.
Whoa, I'm sorry. He's not the biggest disappointment in college football.
Lane Kiffin?
That would be Lane Kiffin. And I don't like to see athletes cry. I don't like to see young competitive athletes in any sport, male, female, doesn't matter. I don't like to see them put in all that. It could be football, it could be the Olympics, anything. I don't want to see, guys, girls defeated like that. And I didn't take joy in seeing Jackson Dart cry, but to watch him cry once, come on the field, and there's a cry again. And I'm sorry, and I've got friends at Ole Miss that aren't going to like this, but your head coach, this is not an A&M thing. Everybody wants to say, well, A&M, I've even had Aggies go, well, we should have beat them. We should have beat them. We could have done something about it. I agree, man. But if you think that Texas A&M and Jimbo Fisher it's the only team, it's the only program that Lane Kiffin and along the way, his players have not talked trash on, have not been cocky, arrogant, made cracks about the head coach on social media, their social media team. Like, if you think that A&M, and this is an A&M thing, and man, they're just pissed because A&M didn't beat them the last 3 years. A&M didn't even play them this year. Jimbo Fisher's gone. That's who was feuding with Lane. That group, we had to hear how much they're spending and how the collective, they got praised and praised about their collective. And that was the same place where the whole thing about the fictitious $30 million recruiting class came from. Fast forward a year or two, and it's, oh, look at this, collecting all this money. That team to lose 3 games and to lose to Kentucky, Florida, and LSU with a combined, I don't know how many losses, probably close to 15. What a complete and utter disappointment. And Billy Napier told everybody at Florida who was sniffing around thinking they wanted to go hire Lane Kiffin a month ago, he told all of them, you're stuck with me, bitches. Deal with it. I'm actually happy for Napier.
I am too.
He doesn't seem like a bad dude. That guy was written off, laughed at, scoffed. All he did was go beat Brian Kelly. All he did was go beat Lane Kiffin and knocked him out of the playoffs. It's a hell of a job he's done there.
Yeah.
It does frustrate you when it's Lagway doing it, but he is also very fun to watch.
Bowl eligible there.
Yeah.
So I think we should do this again in a couple days.
Yeah, preview the actual game.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because if we're looking back, we'll look ahead here in a couple days.
Very disappointing loss. You hate to see it. You knew it was dangerous. Never in a million years would I have thought they'd go down 21-0. Ultimately, that's we can go to play by play, and there's a dozen of them. But when you go behind 21-0 on the road, like if you start out even with them, this is that double-digit type of win you're talking about. If you just trade punches with them into the second quarter, this is what you were talking about, how they played in the final 3 quarters. And then you go to overtime, you let everything get in the way of that. You let anything fluky can happen. You're kind of just like at the mercy of one holding call, one drop snap, or one crazy catch, one drop pay. Like you're at the mercy of all of that. And they put that, because they gave up 21 early, they couldn't put it away late on offense or get the stop on defense. So it's frustrating. They have only themselves to blame. But by some SEC miracle, which you never get this chance never happens.
No, it doesn't.
So we can talk about Texas and they didn't see the SEC grind and yada, yada. It's no longer a thing. And I've eaten my words on that because the league has let me down this year. But damn, it's been fun to watch. Damn, it's been fun for the whole country to follow. I kind of like it. You know why, too? Because there is no such thing this year. And because everyone's I take that back. Am I going to correct myself here? You're watching it every week. And because of that, Texas A&M has a chance to go to the conference title game with one more win. So I'll take it. We'll take it, and we'll talk about it tomorrow on radio, but we'll really talk about it Wednesday on the Luchador.
A Festivus for the rest of us. And as I let you go.
Festivus start? It's not even just say, I don't know. Why'd you say Festivus?
Because you were talking about celebrating a Christmas miracle, whatever. And
I didn't say Christmas. I didn't say a celebration.
Hey, can I tell you something real quick?
What? I don't care. Nick, is that what you say? I don't care.
No, something completely. Oh. Nick, be sure to turn off his mic if he starts arguing. If you blamed soccer earlier,
yeah.
If they really did it like soccer, we'd be kicking field goals at the end of games, not running it from the 2. We'll see you next time.